Welcome, everyone, to another edition of 55 and 5, the only show on YouTube that's going one by one through the entire 121 card 1955 Parkhurst set. Cary Silkin, Ian Riccaboni, our producer AJ, is manning the camera and the microphones. Cary, we've been going through these cards. We've had a bit of an oil slick lately. We've been hitting names that we both know.
Yes, and hopefully that'll happen again today.
Well, Cary.
Oh, boy.
I got some bad news for you. We have a thespian. So we have a man that not only wrestled, but he's an actor for quite a while, but just a lot of bit parts. So that's your hint for today. The premise of this is I'll present a card to Cary. He'll have 5 minutes to tell us what he knows or what he remembers about either hearing or seeing these individuals live or reading about them in the magazines. Today's athlete, again, here's your hint. He's a thespian, and he's a quite developed individual. I'm going to put him on top of Uncle Gunny and Captain Lou, the spiritual backbone of this endeavor. And Cary, what can you tell me about Kenny Ackles?
I know the name.
Oh,
I know the name.
Okay,
I know the name.
Yeah,
I know the name.
All right.
He was around a long time.
Long time. Yes.
I would just see his name in the results of the here. Now I'm going to put myself on the line here. Mm-hmm. He had to wrestle well into the 60s, maybe into the 70s.
Yeah, he wrestled. Yeah, he wrestled quite a long time. It wasn't particularly consistent, though, because, you said, he was, like we mentioned, he was an actor. So he's taking different bit parts and things like that.
But yeah, I would see his name. I don't believe, unless it was in the 50s, he was in the Northeast, although he might have been
briefly. But
I would see his name in the little results as I was. And I've been dragging up all these old wrestling magazines and going back to these, reading about the territories. So a guy like Kenny Ackles, it might be, latest Texas wrestling news.
Right.
And then they're going through the matches and the funks. And this one, Jose Lothario, and then Kenny Ackles. But yes, I know the name. Well-built man.
Yeah.
But now I am going to defer to you so I could learn more.
Yeah. One of the more interesting nicknames, the Terre Haute Terror. That's a pretty cool nickname.
Terror, like Terre Haute, Indiana?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. But he was from Nova Scotia, so who the hell knows where that name came from? I mean, I guess it's possible. He was like our friend Steve Carino, born in Canada, moved very early in his life to Pennsylvania. Could have been one of those situations. He was gained his biggest notoriety in '49 in a Hollywood film called Body Hold. And so that's where he had his biggest part. He claims, newspapers say that he started in 1938. It's the earliest result anybody can find. But he claims he started in 1932, which he would have been 16 years old. So either is possible. He started wrestling sometime between that, it's safe to imagine. He had a big gap between 42 and 47. I thought that was because of
He was in the military?
I thought he was in the military. It turned out he was getting a lot of bit roles acting. So that explains that. He was one of the innovators of the airplane spin, which is very interesting. And other things, he appeared in a number of big-time movies. And again, in bit parts, Mr. Roberts, Broadway, Wish You Were Here, Guys and Dolls, Picnic, Little Abner, and a couple others. So, so he was just small parts in big movies for a lot of his life. He was in Death Wish in 1974, and then Night of the Juggler in 1980. Really? Yeah. So he had a number. He's just a consistent actor through most of his life.
You would think he wouldn't bother with professional wrestling at a certain point.
You'd think, because he'd end up on the Steve Allen Show. He'd end up on Ed Sullivan. He also had roles on The Edge of the Night and Guiding Light, 2 soap operas. Became a big-time Hollywood personal trainer, and that's kind of where people think he maintained his connections.
What he did on Ed Sullivan?
Yeah.
Maybe some kind of bodybuilding routine.
Maybe a physique thing. Yeah. I mean, as you could tell, probably the most put together wrestler we've seen so far in this set. And he's got a pretty modern physique for 1955. I'll say that. Just chiseled. One of the interesting career notes that I found, he wrestled Madison Square Garden, the Olympic in LA, and the Forum in Montreal. So he hit most of the big towns. In Capitol, he wrestled mostly against Steve Gobb, who we talked about earlier, who was the original Nikolai Volkov. And then he had a small undercard feud kind of in your era against Mr. America, Steve Stanley. So about the time you'd be breaking in, you'd be seeing him maybe. It's about that time period. They did a couple matches in the Garden. Probably the most interesting note about his wrestling career that I could find, he had one of the very first matches against Superstar Billy Graham when Superstar Billy Graham took on the name Superstar Billy Graham. And that was out in Arizona.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It's stirring my brain a little because I have these cards from my childhood, probably like you do, like those very earliest, your earliest memories of wrestling.
Yeah.
And I look at this Madison Square Garden results book, and I'll always go back to 66, 67, 60, right when I started watching. And I think his name was in there, although I don't remember seeing him on TV or if he was on once, but I knew his name.
You did? Yeah, I didn't and with all due respect, this is one I thought that might be a stumper. And it's pretty cool that we had some thoughts about him today. And again, like our friend Vic Holbrook, who appeared in a number of movies, this was a guy that really, just listed 10 movies that were
from Guys and Dolls to Death Wish,
right,
to the Ed Sullivan Show. It's interesting.
Quite a career, and wrestled in the Garden, the Forum, the in LA. He did it all. So a name that I didn't necessarily know heading into this, but good one to find out about, and that is Kenny Ackles. And I always like to look at the back of these, and instead of really saying. We've had this trend of them not acknowledging things or maybe just writing generic copy. This one does have the fact that he is one of the innovators of the airplane spin. It also credits him appearing on Broadway, which I couldn't find concrete information on, but is possible. And it says he also helped innovate the Boston Crab, which again, couldn't find a concrete source on that. And these cards aren't particularly accurate. But airplane spin, I could confirm. Boston Crab, I couldn't. But Kenny Ackles, a real man of many trades.
Well, maybe if we IMDb, what it's called, IMDb.
IMDb, yeah.
Right. Did you look?
I did, and I couldn't find any Broadway performances, but I could find the movies that were listed.
Well, I'd like to see what year he was on Ed Sullivan, because there are compilation DVDs of if it was in the 50s, they might not exist, but if it was in the mid 60s on, just be interesting to know what he did.
Yeah, be fun to see. Maybe a nice pose down, a great physique. Maybe against the Topo Gigio.
Or the guy with the spinning plates.
Everybody remembers the guy with the spinning plates.
Well, you're not old enough to remember.
That was the only clip they ever showed on the VHS ads. Best of Ed Sullivan. See the man with the spinning plates.
Right, and that music. What was
Everybody knows the spinning plate guy. But now everybody hopefully will know Kenny Ackles. So, Cary, thank you very much. AJ, thank you for our production on this. We want to thank you, the viewer or listener, if you're on adfreeshows.com, for checking us out. For more of me and Cary, please check out Last Stop Penn Station podcast to hear all about Ring of Honor, hear about Cary's life in New York City and the hustle and bustle of the 70s and 80s. And don't be a stranger. Drop us a line on Twitter at ROHCary, at Ian Riccaboni, and at Bisson Creative, who helps us make all these great videos. So thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of 55 and 5.